Yeon's childhood. On the sea cliffs, she washed the blood from her face. Cold, salty, painful. She was 8 years old. The waves sprayed against her legs. The wind tangled her hair, but she simply knelt there, rinsing the red trail from her head with freezing water. She didn't cry. Somewhere deep inside her, it was too quiet for tears. She lifted her gaze toward the horizon, the same horizon her mother stared at for hours and hours. The same sea that returned nothing. No ship, no man, no hope. Only water, only salt, only silence. And in that silence, something broke inside her that had no name. That was when she made herself a promise. Never again. The cottage where she lived was almost as silent as the sea. The wooden beams above her bed were old, darkened by damp and time. Some already dangerously warped. Plaster peeled in large chunks, and through the cracks in the walls came cold air at night, howling and whistling, as if the house had its own pain and knew no other way to express it. The space was almost empty. A creaking bed, a small table, a rickety chair, a wardrobe that could no longer be fully closed, as if it too had grown tired of everything. Through the only window, the sea was visible. Yeon hated it, not because the view was ugly. It was even impressive, in that raw, merciless way that only truly untamable things can be. But the sea had taken her mother. Slowly, imperceptibly, as if time had decided to be thorough about it. When they came to this settlement, Yeon was still an infant. They arrived suddenly, without warning, without relatives waiting for them, just a mother and child. The mother was young, too young for so much exhaustion behind her eyes, and unusually beautiful, gentle in her movements, quiet in her words. She carried the child pressed close against her, as if afraid that if she let go for even a moment, someone would take it away. The villagers began whispering immediately, because in small places, whispering comes before everything else. There was talk of a husband, a European. From the Balkans, wild lands, someone added, as though that explained everything. That he had been rough, that he had beaten her, that he had left without a word. Nobody knew the truth, but everyone had an opinion. And in places like this, an opinion is enough. At first, the mother was part of the community. She greeted people, she helped, she worked as much as she could, and a little more. But her gaze was always somewhere else, beyond the horizon, fixed on a point nobody else could see, as if she expected a ship to appear on the sea one day, as if someone would come for her. The ship never came, and hope, with nothing to feed it, slowly dried up. At first, the bottle appeared occasionally, then regularly, then indispensably. The mother grew increasingly absent, physically present, but somewhere deep inside, already long gone. She came home late. Sometimes she fell onto the bed, still dressed. Sometimes she didn't even take her shoes off. She didn't notice the small child. Yeon played quietly on the dirty floor, alone, often hungry, often cold. There were kind neighbors, those rare good people who exist in every place and who save lives without ever knowing they're doing it. When her mother died, Yeon was a schoolgirl. The death was not dramatic. No farewell, no last words. Only a silence that settled one morning and never lifted. The smell of alcohol slowly faded, and Yeon lived on, alone because she was already used to it. Only there was no longer anyone sitting on the cliff waiting. But the bitter years left deep marks. She was lonely, excluded, different in a way children sense instinctively, a way they can't articulate but know precisely how to punish with unerring cruelty. Her clothes were worn, her hair often unkempt, her gaze too grown up for her age. And then there were her features. A mixture of two worlds ran through her, European and Asian, and the result was something that couldn't simply be categorized. Blue eyes in a face that was neither entirely here nor entirely there. Glowing skin, a beauty too unusual for this place, and this time, the children taunted her, first with words, then with actions. Her real name was Yeon, but nobody called her that. She was simply Yeon, strange, different, the one without a mother. The breaking point came without warning. A group of older boys, stones. One stone, larger, thrown with more force, struck her on the head. Darkness drew across her eyes. Her knees buckled. On the sea cliffs, she washed the blood from her face. And there, beside the waves that cared nothing for her pain, she began to scream. At the sky, at the sea, at everything that had stolen her childhood. Waves of wild, pure, unshakable rage crashed through her. Not the kind that destroys you from within, the kind that wakes you up. Never again. From that day, she began training. Every day, without excuses, without yielding. Her strength grew slowly but steadily, well concealed behind a delicate body that nobody took seriously. Running became her meditation, her language, her freedom. She ran long, fast, far, further than anyone who might try to follow. And she won. That day at school, 3 older girls, certain of their advantage, who had decided she would be today's target. Yeon sat on the wall, chewing a blade of grass, watching children chase a ball. The girls approached, first with laughter, then with shoving. The yard began to watch. Yeon showed no fear, no anger. She simply waited. Then she stood, fixed a sharp gaze on her opponents. Her blue eyes darkened, turning a metallic gray, cold as the sea before a storm. The girls stopped for a moment. Then the cry came. Not human. Something deeper. The thing that gathers for years and years and waits for the right moment. She launched herself at them with full force, immediately, without warning, without ceremony. She knocked them down, pulled their hair, kicked, screamed. The schoolyard went silent. When it was over, she stood there, breathing hard, a fistful of hair in her hand. She raised it high. Who's next? The crowd dispersed in silence. The next morning, angry parents arrived. They threatened. Yeon listened. She didn't move an inch. She didn't apologize. She didn't promise it wouldn't happen again. She simply waited for them to finish. And the violence stopped. She gained at least that much. Peace. Not happiness. Not justice. Not everything she should have had from the beginning. Only peace. For now. Hyun was barely dragging herself along the narrow path. Each step was heavier than the last. Not from the distance, but from what she was carrying inside. The pain wasn't in her legs. It was deeper. In the place where words don't reach and wounds don't heal quickly. Her chest burned. She breathed in short, shallow bursts, as if afraid to take too much air at once. Her eyes were red, her sleeve long since soaked through with tears that refused to stop. The morning had been beautiful. Now that was impossible to believe. When she reached the cottage door, she didn't knock. She had no strength left for courtesy. She threw herself against it with the full weight of her body. Not from anger, but because she had simply run out of everything else. The door gave immediately, as if it knew she had come. The smell of sweat and wood, half darkness, and Yeon, on the floor, in minimal clothing, drenched in sweat, hands firmly planted beside her body. Push-ups, even precise, without pause. When Yeon was restless or full of something she had no words for, always push-ups, or running, or something that demanded the body and silenced the mind. Hyun stopped in the doorway. She wanted to say something, anything. The words collapsed somewhere between thought and mouth. Then she simply stepped forward and threw herself into her arms. Both lost their balance and landed on the floor. Hyun clutched her shirt with both hands, tightly, convulsively, as if afraid that if she let go, she too would disappear. Yeon was completely still for a moment. Then she held her. "What happened?" she asked quietly. Her voice was softer than Hyun usually knew it. That voice Yeon kept only for her, rare as a sunny day in the middle of a long winter. One arm around her, the other hand slowly stroking her hair. She knew her very well. She knew her outbursts, her drama, her way of making an ending of every small disappointment. But she also knew when it wasn't drama. Ha-geun was a gentle soul in the wrong place, too soft for the sharp edges of the life surrounding them. And for that reason, she needed her, not only as a friend, as protection from a world that didn't take her seriously enough to respect her. Once she had pulled her from the grip of an older man. The memory was brief and sharp as a photograph. Hyun's frozen gaze, foreign hands that wouldn't accept no. Her own response, immediate, without hesitation, without restraint. The man ended up in hospital. Hyun had followed her everywhere from that day, as if Yeon were the only fixed point in a world that kept spinning. Yeon hadn't chosen this, but she had accepted it. And somewhere in that acceptance, they had become what they were, inseparable, inexplicable, necessary to each other in ways neither could quite put into words. Hyun lifted her head. Her eyes were glassy, full of that particular pain that comes when someone you allowed close enough has hurt you. "This morning I ran into him," she began, her voice barely audible. "He was coming with a girl, his arm around her. He was laughing, that laugh I know. Only it wasn't for me." She swallowed. "When I watched him leave, he turned around. He looked at me and told me, calmly as if discussing the weather, to be clear on something, that it was over between us." Her shoulders shook, as if there had ever been anything between us. And then she cried. That deep, painful crying that comes from places you can't simply close. Like a child who has lost the only safe refuge and didn't even know it until it was gone. Yeon stood abruptly, jaw tight, hands in fists. "I'll kill him." "No." Ha-hyun grabbed her hands, her fingers closed around her wrists with a strength she hadn't expected from her. "Please, no. I don't want to lose you too." Her gaze fixed on Yeon, pleading, frightened. That look, the only thing in the world that truly stopped her. "Promise me," Ha-hyun whispered, "that you won't take revenge. Promise." Yeon looked at her. For a long moment, inside her it raged. That familiar, dark anger she had never fully controlled, only contained. But Ha-hyun was there, in front of her, looking at her with eyes that asked for peace, not justice. "All right," she said finally, quiet, almost reluctant. "I promise." She leaned toward her. Their eyes met, close, too close for any pretending. "But you have to promise me something." Ha-hyun waited. "We're leaving?" Yeon said. Now, today. We're leaving this place, both of them, all of it. I can't look at him anymore. Even less the people who know. She was prepared for resistance, for tears, excuses, requests for time. Ha-hyun surprised her. She stood, straightened her back, wiped her face one last time with her sleeve. A slow, almost ceremonial gesture, as if erasing what had been. We're going, she said firmly. Right now. I just need to go home for the essentials. She walked toward the door, this time with a straight back, this time without hesitation. On the threshold, she stopped and looked back. Hurry, she said. The bus leaves in an hour. Yeon watched her go. And in that moment, watching Ha-eun straighten her back and choose, something filled her that she hadn't expected. Not relief, not triumph. Something quieter than either. Hope. Small, stubborn, almost unreasonable hope that maybe sometimes this was enough. To go forward. Even without knowing what waited. To go because staying was no longer possible. Remote place, Yona was just a baby.